Hey everybody, we're back. Sorry it's taken so long. We'll talk about why some of that is here in a moment. But first, what is this? This is our buddy Josh's 2017 Z900 ABS Kawasaki. We've had requests to do items for this bike for quite a while, and we just haven't had time. And one of the things that's been going on here lately, and nobody wants to hear about it. I don't, you don't, nobody wants to hear the C word. But COVID delays have basically got 3 other projects stalled. So we got with Josh and said, hey Josh, you mind bringing your bike over? We think we can slide in a test and some product development and some tuning real quick. And he did. So this video is going to be pretty much in reverse of all the rest of our videos, because this bike is basically finished. What we're going to do now though is go through and explain to you exactly what we did and how we got to this point and the kind of gains that we did get, or maybe that we didn't get along the way. So buckle up. There's going to be a lot of talking at first, but that's okay. We will get to the meat of it right after this. When we first met our buddy Josh, it was back in 2018, Sprint Filter had just made a filter for the Z900, and they wanted us to check fitment. We've seen some problems between Euro fitments and US fitments in the past, so Josh was kind enough to come by. His bike was completely 100% bone stock, 220 miles on it, and he graciously allowed us to install the only filter of its kind in existence. He actually has a printed frame prototype in here, but let me look at let's show you the results here. You can see we got a little bit of a gap right here. We got a little bit of a gap up top, but basically those are not the type of results that we see when we install Sprint filters. Now, I wondered about it, but the bike was totally stock. There really wasn't anything we could do. We couldn't tune, we couldn't change this, change that. Of course, Josh got the benefits now of having a filter that's super easy to clean. He can keep his bike running tip top, and he'll never have to buy another one. So he does have those advantages. But from a power standpoint, I was disappointed. He wasn't disappointed, I don't think. I don't know that what he actually expected. But now we're going to fast forward, 3 years later, and I'm going to pull up some charts to show you the progress that we've made. Let me get those for you here real quick. All right, so you know how we do it. And listen, any one of you that are looking at this video, if you go to our Gixilla build series on the 2017 GSX-R 1000, we're going to apply exactly the same techniques, maybe a little change here or there, idiosyncrasies because the bikes are different, but those techniques work on this bike also, and they work on your bike. It doesn't, the spelling on the tank doesn't matter so long as you understand what we're trying to do and what we're trying to accomplish. So the first thing we do, the bike came back, we installed a power commander on it, that's all, but we put all zeros in the map, so it was like the power commander wasn't there. We went and we made a base run, and then and you see nice and clean. We've got our air fuel ratio here. So the first thing we did was de-restrict the ECU. I know this is a little difficult to understand or imagine, but the blue line is the de-restricted ECU. It took us about an hour to do that, to get the ECU out, and you can see that we actually lost horsepower. Now we picked up another 500 RPMs in the over rev, but just a straight up install within an hour of a de-restricted flash with, you know, no fuel tuning or anything like that. With the stock exhaust, we actually lost power. So I have people ask all the time, can I use a de-restricted flash in my ECU with a completely stock bike? Well, you can, yeah. That shows you what you get. You're not going to pick up any power. So what next? What would you do next? Well, logic would say, well, why don't you try and tune the power commander since you've got one on there? Well, we're not in the tune a stock exhaust world, and we're in the wow, it's really busy here world. Hey, Are you one of those types that go to our site every day and get frustrated because the part that you want to order always says zero, zero inventory, zero inventory, zero inventory? Well, I want to let you in on something. We're experiencing tremendous growth right now. So if you look around, let's just take exhaust pipes for instance. We just had 7 giant pallets of exhaust systems come in, and we have been working every day to get these exhausts out the door. This is only today's shipment of exhaust. So what happens is, let's say we have 50 of a particular type of exhaust come in, but we've got 51 on order. The 50 will go out the door in the order they were purchased. They'll come in, they'll go out. It will still say zero because we don't have any in inventory. They all went out the door. This is happening on almost everything. Exhaust systems, wheels, almost everything. I'm not trying to complain about COVID, but it is a bit of a pain in our rear end. So anyway, think about that. If you want something, place your order, put it in our system. You may have to wait a little bit, but at least that way when it comes in the door, it'll go out the door and we will get it to you. So what do? You could add a, map it, add a slip-on, but if you look at our Gixzilla series, you'll see that a slip-on is basically to increase looks, sounds, and save a little bit of weight, but from a power standpoint, didn't really do anything. And we don't really, I don't have time to mess with the slip-on stuff right now. So I wanted to make a change that really, I believed, would solidly make a difference. We did a Z1000 project back in the past, and when we switched to a full exhaust, it made huge gains. I thought this bike would probably do the same thing. So let me go in here. I'll get rid of this and no other changes. Just throw on our stainless Penta-Carbon full system. As soon as we throw it on, and what do you get? Bam! Look at all of the power gains. That's with no tune. That's just putting on the exhaust. So is a pipe really worth that much? I mean, that's huge. We're looking at 111. That's a 14 horsepower gain up in the over rev. Well, yeah, it is worth that. And let me show you why. Okay, here is the stock exhaust for the Z900. Everybody knows stock exhausts are really, really heavy. This one is it's about 28 pounds versus our Penta-Carbon, which is about 8.5 pounds. So you save close to 20 pounds, and I think the exact numbers are a 69% weight savings or something like that. So, but look at the way these are constructed. They're a little different construction. They've got the cat in there. They've got all kinds of stuff. But I want you to look right here. Look at these head pipes. Now, when we did the Z1000 back in the day, as soon as I saw this setup, I went, wow, I'm pretty sure my 600 had bigger head pipes. So let me look here, and I work in inches as opposed to millimeters. 1.37 go to millimeters, so it's about 35 millimeter diameter OD. But this is a real thick, heavy walled tubing. So if I go in here and I measure the ID, now we're at 32.6, which translates out to 1.28 on the ID. Now, let's come over here real quick, and this is a prototype. It's the only one, so I know I'm gonna have to just sort of measure on the bike for us. But if we go down here and check that head pipe, 1 inch 520, I think that was my fault. All right, so it's about 1.5 inches or 38.5 millimeters. Now, the reason that pipe only weighs 8.5 pounds is because our stainless steel is an ultra thin wall. Hold on, let me get something. All right, this isn't for this bike. I just want to show you the wall thickness though. So if we come over here, we're looking at 0.8 millimeters, which I know is 28 thousandths wall thickness. So if you look in here, this thing is way choked down, to 1.25 inches or so. We're going to have, with our wall thickness, we're going to have over 1/4 inch additional diameter. Now, what does that mean? Oh, Brock, I'll lose torque, blah, blah, blah. Well, Well, you already saw the weight savings. And on this dyno chart, where, you know, we did have the derestricted flash already in, we already had the sprint filter, you can see, look at this gap in power from, you know, 4,000 RPM up. We have picked up horsepower and torque all the way up everywhere. So where's the disadvantage to this? There isn't one. There really isn't. The OEMs they have their hands tied, and they have to figure out ways to restrict these bikes for noise and for emissions. Now, typically, we talk about, you know, well, fix it in the flash. Well, we put a flash in there, didn't do anything. What we're looking at is a restriction. Typical restrictions are either electronic or on the intake side of the motor. This is a restriction on the exhaust side of the motor. It's not what we're usually doing. Like I said, we're working backwards here in more ways than one. So once we remove this restriction, now we've got a high flow system, so our high flow filter should work out, and our ECU flash, because we're also adding additional RPM. So let me show you some of those results right now. All right, so what I'm gonna do here, we're gonna go ahead and get this run out of the way because it doesn't matter anymore. Now we've got our Penta-Carbon full exhaust installed. And so what would we do next? Well, we've got a power commander, so let's go in there and do some tune-up. We can because it's derestricted, we can tune all throttle openings and get the bike really, really smooth. And also, we typically pick up a little additional power when we tune that way. So let's pull that up, and you can see with the Penta-Carbon and the street map out of our Map Support program with our de-restriction flash, we got a nice little gain, a couple horsepower everywhere. Now, the one thing that a wide open throttle dyno run won't show you is how much smoother this bike is to operate now. Boy, it is just liquid smooth from an idle, low RPMs, all the way up to red lines, really, really working well. So, okay. We're jamming. Brock's is experiencing crazy growth. What do we do next? Well, a lot of guys want to do like they don't want a power commander or piggyback for some reason. It's a bad word in the industry. You can save some money. So what we did next, and I'll go ahead and pull this out of the way, is we went in and we created a fully tuned ECU flash. So you don't have to have a power commander. So if you're a set and forget kind of guy, you can buy that tune from us. You get the de-restriction flash with the tune already in, no power commander needed. And you can see here, we actually picked up a little bit of power, not a lot, but that worked out. That worked out well. So, okay, what next? Well, a lot of our guys like going with oxygenated fuels. Now, unfortunately, it's wintertime. We didn't have any fresh MR12. I found some MR12 that it was almost a year old, but it wasn't gummy and sticky, so we went ahead and threw that in. Once again, I'll get this out of the way. All right, so usually when we put MR12 in, it's good for 5, 6, 7 horsepower. Some bikes as much as 9. It just sort of depends on their compression ratio. Well, if you look and see what we've got here, we got a nice little gap here. There's 5 horsepower. But what the heck is this? You know, we're picking up power, and then all of a sudden that goes on. Well, let me explain that to you. So what do we have right now? We've got a Penta-Carbon, de-restricted flash, MR12. So in my notes up here, I have put in the title, audible clutch slip. As we were making that run, after we added the MR12, I was making the run, and I actually heard the clutch slip, and then it just sort of caught again. I thought, uh-oh, we have reached the capabilities of the stock clutch. So that's we stopped what we were doing, and we pulled the clutch, and we had one plate that was showing signs of slippage, but the rest of the plates, and even the back of this plate, looks almost new. But you can see the pads are smeared here. This was definitely slipping. So we took our yellow clutch springs and put those in, and then made another run. Once again, let me get this out of the way. And look what happens when we fixed the clutch slip. Oh, bam! Look at that. That's our power coming right back. Looking good. So we got that fixed. One thing I do want to mention also, guys, is as we were increasing the power on this bike, and I had made a couple other runs too that I could hear it slip. I knew it was slipping. One of the things you have to watch is as you increase the power on these bikes, not only do you need to beef up the clutch, of course, because it's making quite a bit more power, you have to watch because there's no secondary adjustment on this clutch like you would have on a GSXR or a BMW. So the free play up at the lever is really, really critical. Make sure you have free play at your lever, because if you lose free play at the lever, you're going to get clutch slip also. So we may have had a little bit of that going on. I'm not really sure, but either way, we've got it fixed. So what now? COVID. we got to get shit done, get it done. If you've been waiting for a stainless exhaust, hopefully yours is on this. Knocking some of the COVID delays out of here. Well, somebody said, I saw Chris Moore's video and he changed the ignition timing and got miracle results. Okay, well, let's check that out. Once again, I'm going to move this out of the way, but you can see that was our run. This is our run where we added 2 degrees ignition timing up top. And what the heck? We lost power pretty much everywhere. Now, I can go into a tirade about ignition timing, but if you know my thoughts on it, very, very, very rarely do we pick up ignition timing or pick up power with ignition timing. About the only time we do is sometimes you can put in a higher octane, 93 octane, and bump the timing up so you can burn all that extra octane and you can see a power gain. 9 times out of 10, we just don't mess with that. I like the stock timing. Let me just, for giggles, let me just show you something here. I'll pull a couple up and you'll be able to see. Let's see, there's +2. And I thought, well, okay, well, maybe the hack was wrong and we didn't actually check the timing. Instead of adding 2, let's take 10 out of it just to make sure we're in the right spot. Oh yeah. If you ever want to crush your bike's horsepower, pull 10 degrees ignition timing out of it. So anyway, we went back and forth and managed to lose horsepower except for stock. Now, I can go in and I can look at the maps. I can look at all the things that are going on with ignition timing and, and I can go in and play with stuff. I did notice 29.7 is really not a lot of ignition timing. A lot of modern sport bikes have a bunch more than that. So I just put 34 degrees ignition timing there. That's what I run in my Bandit. Let's see what happens. I decided to make an MR12 map, got it out of there, and I wanted to go back in, put the 89 octane back in there. Brock, why do you use 89? Because they don't make 90. The bike is supposed to have 90 in it. That's what it calls for. And we know from previous testing and countless videos and countless articles that 9 bikes out of 10 will make more power on 89 octane than they will on 93. We've got the 89 in there. So for a base run, we go in. I'm just going to close all this stuff out and pull this up. So that's where I started with the 89. I got my 34 degrees ignition timing. Was that any good? How would I tell? Well, let's just go put the stock ignition timing back in with the same mapping and everything. What do we got? Check it out. That's the blue line. The blue line, we managed to pick up a little bit of power pretty much everywhere up top. Not really much down here, but moral of the story, if I've got 34 degrees ignition timing in my bike, I don't pick up any more horsepower, but if I get a load of bad gas, I could detonate, destroy my engine. So put the stock timing back in. So where are we now? Well, we are in a very interesting position. Got the bike all done, but what's up with that sprint filter horsepower stuff at the beginning. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to work in reverse. The sprint filter is in the bike right now. We've got it all tuned up. I'm going to make 3 dyno runs right now to get us base runs, and then as quickly as I can, our buddy Josh knew he didn't need his stock filter anymore, so he threw it away. So I went and bought a new one. That's always fun. Love buying new filters that I don't need. But I'm going to put in a brand new filter and see just exactly what kind of gains or losses we're going to get by putting the stock filter in versus the sprint filter. So let me go make these warm-up passes and the base runs, and I'll be right back. Okay, man, I love bikes that are just brutally consistent. Look at this thing. This is a dead ass overlay. 129.36, 0.20, 0.32. You don't get any closer than that. Now, look, it is 12:16 p.m. This bike's already partially disassembled, which is going to make changing the filter a little bit easier. Let's change the filter, not change anything else, come back in, and see whether or not removing a high flow sprint filter and replacing it with a OEM paper filter. Let's show you what we're looking at here. All right, OEM filter, just the way it would be replaced if you took your bike to your dealer. We're going to put that in and see what happens. Stay tuned. Man, they put enough screws in here. You'd think it's airtight. I cracked myself up. Got a little wire holder. Pull that out of the way. You can see a couple slots. This just slips in the slots. Pull this up. Now, there's our bolt. All right. So, I don't know when the last time this airbox was cleaned was, but it looks awfully good. I mean, anybody who thinks that there's not going to be anything in their airbox is fooling themselves. That's not how this works. There are particles small enough. You can see it's a little bit of superfine dust in there. That's completely normal. Like I said, this was the original printed filter. We'll go ahead and it was basically just sort of glued in there. That probably wasn't helping things either. But we'll put a production filter in. Looking pretty good over here. That fell off when we pulled the tank. So let's go ahead and put the stock filter in, see what we get. You know, you could change velocity stacks on this bike and move the power, more peak power if you wanted to, you know, sort of make it more racy. It looks to me like you could just buy a number 1 and 4 stack and put it in number 2 and 3 position, and that would help the peak power quite a bit. Unfortunately, that really will hurt torque down low because stacks only move power. They don't make power. We are ready to go back together. Time, 12:31. All right, so what we're gonna do, we're just gonna go, we're gonna make 3 base runs again. Now remember, same mapping, same everything. The only thing we changed was going from the Sprint P08 F1-85 prototype air cleaner back to stock because we didn't have the ability to tune when we did it the first time. So like I said, this video is a little backwards from normal, but let's see what happens. My guess is that we're going to lose horsepower. Big question is how much? Guys, well, full disclosure, this is the next day. Right after we made our runs with the stock filter, I had an appointment. We were running late, so we just decided to leave everything up, come in the next day, and why don't we discuss what we just saw. Now, if you were paying attention to the 3 initial base runs with the Sprint filter, we put the OEM filter in here. If you look at the peak, you can see we can definitely see some losses, which is what we'd expect. Now, if you're looking over here, you're probably going, oh my God, what is that mess? It's a disaster. Well, we have a problem even with the filter turned on with what we call wraparound, and so I can even turn it on, but we still get it here. You can't see anything. So what I'm gonna do, I'll take the best run from the Sprint filter, best run from the stock filter, clean both of those up, and show you what's going on in a little bit more detail here. Just take me a minute. All right, we've got this cleaned up a little bit, and if you want to zoom in, you can see, we definitely see a sizable, measurable decrease in power. The higher RPM we go, 127 to 125 and some change. Now, that's the kind of gain that we would expect when we put in a Sprint filter. Of course, we just, like I said, backwards. We just showed it as a loss when we put the stock filter back in. But I want to point something out. Now, you'll see sometimes we'll put a Sprint filter in and we'll pick up 4, 5, 6, even more horsepower. Well, those are in higher power applications. You got to remember, this is all about your engine's nothing but a pump. We're trying to get more air in, more air out. Like the GSXRs and the ZX10s, the high revving 14,000 RPM, moving all kinds of air, that's where you're really going to get your big gains. But even with something like this, we saw a measurable gain and we get the benefits of being able to clean it easily. So, where are we and what did we learn? Let me pull up where we started and compare it to where we are with the Sprint filter and give you an idea of exactly what happened as a result of the gains or the changes that we've made. All right, so where did we start versus where we are now? If you want to come over here, I'll highlight the red. The red is stock. And so what does that mean? It was basically 100% stock motorcycle, except we added the Sprint P08 F1-85 air cleaner. The blue line is where we just finished up. Pump gas, Sprint, the same Sprint filter, and you can see the gains. I mean, we've got some really, really nice gains here. 114 to 128. I want to point out this area up here. We call it over rev, and I know I talk about this every once in a while. I don't want people to start getting annoyed because I'm really trying to get this point across. So the OEM rev limiter comes in at, it looks like right about, I don't know, 10.4. I could go see exactly. So let's say you shift right before the limiter at, well, you can see it starting to fall off. So let's shift at the point of maximum power, and we will assume that we're going to drop back about 1,500 RPM after our gear shift. So basically, I shift the bike at, you know, well, let's make it easy. Let's just go pick 10,000 RPM. I shift the bike at 10,000 RPM. First gear, second gear, it falls back about 1,500 RPM. So at 10,000, I had 116 horsepower. 1,500 RPM back, I fall back and I begin accelerating again from 108 horsepower. Now let's look at it with our de-restriction flash, where we also added some additional RPM. So just to make it easy, let's say I'm here at 11. Well, I can get up closer to the rev limiter here. So let's just say I shift at 11.1 and we fall, and we're making 127 horsepower. Well, we fall back 1,500 RPM, we're still at 128. Even further, we're still at 128. So what that means is I can rev the bike. It's not nosing over like it did stock because we have the air cleaner, we have the pipe, we have the de-restriction flash. So it's not nosing over. I shift at a higher RPM. I fall back into an area that has a whole bunch more horsepower to begin my next gear from. So that makes for a faster, quicker accelerating motorcycle. So our buddy Josh, when he starts getting into the upper RPMs, he's gonna get a really big surprise, because these bikes are apples and oranges. Not only does this bike run much better now, but it's also considerably lighter. It sounds great and it looks cool. So I don't know if I want to get into this wormhole, but I get questions all the time about, Brock, what is the optimum air-fuel ratio for my bike? And people get mad because my answer is, it's the air-fuel ratio that your bike makes the most power at. There's no magic one. I can't spit out, well, it's 12.88664 to 1. No, it's crap. It's not the way it works. And I'm going to show you how I know. So, most of you have seen what we call a sniffer that we put inside the exhaust system. Now, typically, sniffers are used for OEM applications where you don't have the option of putting in a second sensor. And I'm going to get on the other side and point here. So, we also have one here inside the pipe. Brock, why would you have two sensors in your exhaust? Oh my God, this is crazy town. Well, to me, you never can get enough data. So if one of these sensors goes bad, I still have the other one so I don't throw out all my runs. But let me show you something that may confuse the hell out of some of you, and some of you might go, duh, that's what it is. Hold on, let me, 1 second. All right, bear with me here. In the words of Confucius, a man with one watch knows what time it is. A man with two watches has no idea. Ha! Kind of crazy babbles that, Brock. Well, check this out. And once again, let me point this out. So, air-fuel ratio number 1 is being measured here through our pump. Air-fuel ratio number 2 is being measured directly inside the pipe. And I'd made mention in the past where typically this sensor will read a little bit leaner because it's more likely that the pump's going to draw air in also, whereas the one in your pipe really should be the one that's most accurate. So here we have one of our higher performing runs, and you can see, and let me zoom in here a little bit. All right, so at 11,000 RPM, air-fuel ratio number 1 is 12.94 to 1. Air-fuel ratio in the number 2 in the pipe is 12.31 to 1. Which one's right? Well, that's simple. They both are. All air-fuel ratios are a reference. So these two sensors aren't all brand new. One of them could have more time on it. We've got a way to check their calibration. So you've got the two sensors that may not necessarily read even, and then you have the fact that the pump can draw in more air. So how do we know that's the ultimate air-fuel ratio for this bike on this day? Well, that's simple. We go in here and we make runs until we get maximum power. Okay, that's my best run. Then I add some additional fuel. If the horsepower goes down, then I know the other one was better. So I go in, I remove fuel. Well, if the horsepower goes down, then I know my original was better. And that's what this is. That's better. So for this bike, with that filter, that flash, that pipe, that Tier 2 Marathon 89 octane pump gas, that is the ultimate air-fuel ratio when being measured on this dyno with our equipment. And that's all there is to it. There is no what is it? I would have never been able to tell you previously, because usually, and if you've seen our other series, we'll shoot 13.2, 13.5 to 1, depending on the bike. Well, here we are at 12.9 and 12.3, and it's the best. That's what it wants. It's what the bike wants. So anyway, I hope that didn't confuse you too much. All right, we would like to thank our buddy Josh for dropping what he was doing and bringing us his Z900 ABS so we could finish up this project. Remember, this entire combination will be available on brocksperformance.com, or you can talk to our customer service agents, figure out exactly what you want, and you can have exactly what he did here, and hopefully put a big old smile on your face when you go for a ride. So what's next? Well, we have 3 important projects, all in various states of standstill, let's call it that. So we're going to get back on it. I know you guys want to know about the ZH2. We've made some gains in that department. We've also got our 2020 BMW S1000RR. And these are all, they're going to be consolidated like this, where we're not going to do these big, long, drawn-out series. We just can't do it. We're too busy right now. And remember, we do this as a business. Business comes first. Videos come second. So, and then what else do we have going on? Oh, I brought a 2020 Katana in a while ago, and I think I'm going to be able to pull this off and move the Katana up now because the other projects are stalled, and hopefully we'll have some information on that too. So until next time, I'm Brock for Brock's Performance. We'll see you then.